Greetings from shady California. Shady with redwoods and sequoias, and shady for some of its businessmen and early developers. In this presentation, I'm going to combine a brief history of two men with the same name with a whole bunch of photographs focusing on beautiful Mount Madonna County Park, the queen of the Santa Clara County Park system. In these days, when we can't travel much because of the coronavirus pandemic, we have once again begun to enjoy a place that's close to home, but feels a million miles away. If you come to California and drive down the famous Highway 1, you will come upon the artsy old hippie haven which houses the Henry Miller Library. His works, in my opinion, consist mostly of immoral or discouraging writings, and I've never been tempted to buy anything there, but I diverge. And if someone asks, do you know anything about Henry Miller? You may likely assume they're referring to the author, Henry Valentine Miller, December 26, 1891 to June 7, 1980. Good long life. Wikipedia tells us he was an American writer and artist. He was known for breaking with existing literary forms and developing a new type of semi-autobiographical novel that blended character study, social criticism, philosophical reflection, stream of consciousness, explicit language, sex, surrealist free association, and mysticism. Wow, that's quite a blend. Anyway, if you make it out west or down south from our house, it's worth stopping at the Henry Miller Library for a cup of coffee, a flashback to the 1970s, interesting, odd sights, and a pleasant, leg-stretching walk. But that's for another day. The man we have come to love and admire, as much as we admire dead old rich men who may have participated in some shady deals goes, made it to New York in 1846 from Germany. In 1847, purchasing a non-refundable, no-name change steamboat ticket from a friend who wasn't able to make the journey after all, Heinrich Alfred Kaiser arrived in San Francisco as Henry Miller with $6 in his pocket, and fortunately for him, found a job as a butcher. Perhaps the most surprising thing about him is that he is not more well-known today. As writers Arix and Wartzman said in The King of California, no man shaped early California, its land and its water, quite like Heinrich Alfred Kaiser, aka Henry Miller. Skipping over a lot of business history, within a few years, Miller owned a whole bunch of cattle and a whole lot of land and water rights. By playing some tricks on railroad developers, he turned land into levees for his growing irrigation system. He purchased land at bargain prices from Spanish land grant holders. Once, he made an agreement to purchase as much land as he could circle in a day in a boat. Then he strapped his canoe to a wagon and took off riding, covering much more territory than a boat in water could have done. Folks say he could ride his horse from Mexico to Canada and sleep on his own ranch every night. It becomes hard to discern between truth and legend when it comes to Henry Miller. Henry also was known and appreciated by those who followed the dirty plate trail. Henry told his cook never to turn away anyone asking for food, and there were plenty of people like that. The cook felt frustrated because for him it meant having to wash the plates twice. So Miller suggested letting the needy simply reuse the plates of those who had already eaten. It may sound kind of gross by today's standards, but hey, these people were camping, riding for miles on horses in the dirt, not getting daily baths probably. Their immune systems were probably used to fighting off a variety of cooties, so it wasn't that big of a deal. And a lot of hungry people were satisfied when they were willing to eat on a pre-used plate. Henry owned a mansion in San Francisco which burned in 1906 as part of the post-earthquake fires. In 1863, Henry had built a $50,000 mansion at Bloomfield Ranch near Gilroy. Some of his business was settled in Los Baños, a sweet little town on the road to Yosemite with a few hidden delights, but a place that gets sidewalk egg frying hot in summer. To escape the summer heat, he built a few bungalows on Mount Madonna, a spot in the redwoods near Watsonville, with cool summers. and with great views back onto the valley where his business was. In 1879, the youngest Miller daughter, Sarah, died in a horseback riding accident. Sadly, the houses on Mount Madonna burned in 1901, leaving only the stone foundations and a couple of walls. But there was an upside. Santa Clara County acquired the land in 1927, and they acquired the part containing the ruins of the house in 1953. Some of those who visit Mount Madonna County Park today feel the spirit of Sarah throughout the park and say that her horse leaves tracks around their tents, or she suddenly appears in the back seat of their car trying to get off the mountain. Not being a big believer myself in spirits wandering among the living, I still have to attest to the spiritual wonder that the park awakens, especially in these COVID-19 days when hardly anyone is there. Mount Madonna is on the border between Santa Cruz and Santa Clara counties. The name was said to have come from early Italian immigrants living in the area. It is and was a frequent spot for my family for many years. Girl Scout camps, tent camping, tours of the estate with our meetup hiking group. We even got to meet Henry Miller's descendants once on a tour with a park docent. We took visitors there. Sometimes, if we only had time to stand in the dead center of an old fountain where you can feel your voice echo back at you and then hit the road for somewhere else. But somehow we just hadn't made the hour-long drive there since we started trekking to farther away places a few years ago. But now when hot days hit here in this valley, where none of us has adequate air conditioning, Mount Madonna County Park has become a favorite refuge again. Something magical happened when we went recently, a sense of spirit, a longing for everyone I knew to be able to be there and experience it, letting the soul of the trees, the intimacy of fairy circles, the expansive views of the valley below seep into their hearts. But please don't all of you come at the same time, as part of the enchantment is that the dearth of visitors this year gives us visitors the feeling of owning the whole town-sized park ourselves. While the atmosphere lends delight, it also creates a tender ache in the soul. The 4 white fallow deer given to Miller by William Randolph Hearst grew into a herd, where countless children and some adults had the joy of feeding them over the years. My couch surfers visiting from Europe enjoyed this activity. The deer eventually developed birth defects due to inbreeding, and because they are not native to the area, the park system did not bring in other deer to add their DNA to the mix. Now only 2 lonely deer remain, lying almost invisible in separate fields. The rationale is understandable, but the loss of these creatures is sad. Thank you, Henry Miller, despite your flaws, for the wonderful place you have left us. Thank you for saving the Thule elk from extinction, for giving our kids the joy of the fallow deer, and saving for us a space so large that it has microclimates and a variety of landscapes. I hope you are resting in peace and that you know your legacy. A few last-minute photos too good to leave out. Before the houses were built on Mount Madonna, Henry Miller stopped by and took a nap in a tree. Henry had 2 other children, Henry Jr. and Nellie Jr., who was named after her mother. Mr. Miller was able to save Henry Jr., who was in the San Francisco mansion when the fire came. Charles Lux joined Miller in the butcher business in San Francisco. The Miller and Lux company lasted many years, but the 2 parted in rather unhappy circumstances in the end. A letter to one of his managers in Fireball. I noticed that you say you have 97 colts. Are they the ones that you have with your saddle horses, or is this the crop of colts that you received from Santa Rita? Santa Rita Ranch in the San Joaquin Valley was Miller's first property, bought in 1863. What became of the colts which came from Santa Rita, as is generally done? I want to know where the 97 colts came from. Were they given to you to be ridden for saddle, or are they all the colts which you got from Santa Rita or anywhere else? As to the feed not being as good as usual on the overflowed land, I would state that it is early yet, and the feed will grow as soon as there is any warm weather. I expect you to put out as many cattle as the land can possibly hold, and there will be sufficient for. Have everything ready. See that there are troughs enough so the cattle will have plenty of room and will not likely fight one another. What have you got at the Mowry place? Is it under your direction, or does Hans Raven look after it? How many cattle are in your charge? Is not the branding less than usual, or have you shipped a great many calves for veal, or are you holding a large number ready for shipment? Yours truly. It was fun to see something about how Henry ran his business and how he could keep up with so many different things without a computer. I'm standing in the middle of the circle here at Mount Madonna County Park in the ruins of the old Henry Miller estate. You can actually feel, when you talk from the dead middle of this circle, you can feel the echo coming back at you. And it's more fun to sing and feel it. You have to concentrate to feel it. Wow! This is fun. But after a while, you've had your fun. Oh. We're trying to find out if you can hear the echo in the recording.
Okay, I'm in the center of the fountain, and if you're in the center, you can hear an echo, an echo, echo. Don't know if you can hear it, but I can.